To unlock this regional potential, we must deepen our physical and institutional integration. The ASEAN Power Grid, or APG, is central to this vision. With 7 operational interconnections and more underway, cross-border power trade is not only feasible, but mutually beneficial. The Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore Power Integrated Project, or in short LTMS PIP, is a prime example of which multilateral electricity trade is possible for countries to work together to deliver renewable electricity across borders.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Salom Hares, anda sedang menonton agenda AWANI. Baik, cakap-cakap dan perhatian sekarang tertumpu pada sidang kemuncak ASEAN 2025 yang dipengerusikan oleh Malaysia di ibu negara sekarang. Dan sudah tentu banyak perkara yang menjadi prioriti dan perbincangan sepanjang 2 atau 3 hari sidang kemuncak ini dan juga sidang-sidang yang berkaitan. Antara perkara utama adalah kelestarian, kemampanan dan juga tenaga. Saya kini bersiaran daripada Energy Transition Meeting 2025 yang bincangkan perkara itu dan juga hala tuju ASEAN gerak ke hadapan dalam peralihan ke tenaga yang lebih hijau untuk menjamin pembangunan yang lebih mampan. Untuk segmen pertama ini saya mahu bersama dengan Roberto Boca, Head of Center for Energy and Materials for the World Economic Forum, dan izinkan saya untuk mengalihkan perbualan ini ke dalam bahasa Inggeris. Roberto, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
To begin with, could you share with us the World Economic Forum's vision for energy transition in Southeast Asia and how the ETM's vision aligns with the grand vision of what I just said?
Oh, it's a big question. It's not that we have a specific vision on Asian, because we believe the energy transition are designed locally and regionally, as we are doing here in ASEAN, in the context of ASEAN. But definitely there are common patterns on energy transition, and the 3 key dimensions of energy transition and energy system are fundamental to be inclusive in this when we talk about energy transition. So an energy transition has to be secure, has to present a secure energy system, has to be sustainable. The sustainability is critical, but also equity is critical. So it's about creating development, is creating jobs, and of course ensuring sustainability. So these are common patterns that definitely we are seeing here in the region, and I think through the ASEAN integration potential there is a further opportunity to achieve these targets.
When we talk about this, we always pay attention to the biggest emitters. When we talk about COP, for example, year after year. But what makes ASEAN a strategic region for clean energy, especially taking into consideration our target for net zero as soon as possible?
Well, you know, this region is full of resources. And I also think a lot of the policy that some of the government in the region are putting in place are really long-term thinking and really strategic in that things. So you have a lot of resources, you have also a lot of the demand coming, because these are very fast-growing economy with young population, and so I think this is part of the opportunity. There are a lot of demand, but also a lot of supply. And I want to underline the fact that it's not only about clean electron, but it's also about clean molecules. So it's not only about electrons and electricity, if you like, so solar, wind, hydro, and all the opportunity on this side, but it's also how you can have clean fuels that complement the energy system.
Of course, you can't do it by yourself. Collaborations are very, very important. So how can some of the organizations that we've seen today so far, like My Center for IR, how can they leverage WEF's global network to achieve this goal collectively?
Yeah, the work we are trying to do with this global network, for example, with industrial cluster and other activity we do, is really to look at where are the best practice when it comes to policy, when it comes to collaboration between private and public sectors, and then share those best practices across. So sometimes there are global best practices that we can bring here to the region, and sometimes we take some of the best practice from the region elsewhere. So there is a reciprocal learning.
What challenges have you seen in the past few years in advancing this goal?
Well, the energy transition is very, very investment heavy. There is a lot of investment having and financing having, but as has been said today, it's not just the financing, it's really an investment. It's an investment of the future. It's an investment in creating the new energy system of the future. So one of the challenges we see is that even just in the last 3 years, more than 80% of the investment in clean energy were in advanced economy, while most of the growth of energy demand is going to be in emerging economy, in middle economy, and so on. And so I think one of the challenges is really to bring the money where the growth in demand is going to be.
Yeah. Do you think there's probably less of a premium put on developing economies who are focused more on developing economies, increasing quality of life? And the criticism is that in this part of the world, environmental concerns and goals kind of take a back seat as opposed to more developed countries, as you mentioned, in the Western Bloc.
Well, I don't think so. Actually, with the latest geopolitical shift and geoeconomic shift, for me it's very reassuring to come to this part of the world and see that the commitment is still there. You were referring to it. The commitment to a transition that is also sustainable is still there. But again, let's remember, energy transition is not only about sustainability, it's also about security and equity. So the right energy transition has to have the three dimensions. And so there is no wrongdoing if we are taking the three in accounts and we try to drive the three.
Yeah. Let's break this down to two very simple components. You have the low-hanging fruits and you have long-term goals. Obviously, a lot of it is long-term goals. It's going to take time. So for ASEAN, under Malaysia's chairmanship this year, what are the low-hanging fruits that we can execute fairly quickly to advance this goal?
Well, it's very difficult to say which are the low-hanging fruit, but I think all the try and attempt to integrate the grids is definitely a big opportunity. I wouldn't say it's a low-hanging fruit, it's a big challenge, but I think it's visible. We know what it is, we know what it takes. There are other regions that have done that with good and bad things. You look at Europe, I come from Europe, and integration of the grid has been one of the elements. We have also seen some challenges with some of the challenges that there are in there, but I think a region like this can learn from those good things and also what didn't work.
Finding some closing words, especially within your perspective, because I think you have a very unique perspective, because your ambit is also involves things like mining, was or still is actually. So I think you've seen both sides of it, because now we are talking about green energy. Things like mining and coal are very much vilified, but you've been on both sides. So how do you see that from this unique perspective and juxtapose that with the grand goal that ASEAN hopes to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, mining in general, if you think even for the renewable energy solution like solar and wind and the battery, etc., you need mining, you need materials, you need minerals. So it's a necessity. Of course, we can do better with the circularity. We can do better in reusing and being smarter in how much we use. But again, we have always to keep in mind it cannot be only about sustainability. We have also to ensure economic development and security. And so those industries will need to transition. We have actually a session today on coal to clean, but we have to be smart in the way to do it. We can't just shut down and think it will work. We have really to make sure that energy keeps flowing to sustain economic growth, and then little by little find solutions that are able to shift the game to the new energy system.
Roberto, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Agenda awani bertindak seketika, kita kembali selepas ni dari Energy Transition Meeting sempena Sidang Kemuncak ASEAN 2025. Jangan ke mana-mana.
Region to create a robust enabling environment to catalyze private investment, both domestic and international, through coordinated policy reform and innovative financial instruments, which include, firstly, blended finance mechanism and public guarantees to de-risk early-stage renewable energy projects. Secondly, deepening of capital markets through the issuance of green bonds, Islamic finance instruments such as Sukuk, and sustainability-linked loans. Thirdly, carbon pricing frameworks that reflect the real cost of emission and incentivize the shift toward low-carbon technologies. And fourthly, digitalization of energy ecosystem, including smart grids, AI-based forecasting tools, and demand-side management system to enhance system flexibility and efficiency.
Kembali bersama Agenda Awani, saya Salom Hares di Mesyuarat Peralihan Tenaga atau Energy Transition Meeting 2025 di sisi Sidang Kemuncak ASEAN yang sedang berlangsung di Ibu Negara. Sudah tentu banyak perkara yang menjadi tumpuan kepengurusian Malaysia tahun ini, tetapi antara yang utama adalah kemampanan dan juga kelestarian dalam pembangunan. Ia merentasi pelbagai sektor, tetapi sudah tentu antara sektor tunjangnya kalau kita bercakap berkenaan dengan kelestarian dan kemampanan adalah tenaga. Sejak beberapa tahun lepas, ASEAN sudah pun merancakkan usahanya untuk beralih ke tenaga hijau, dan itu adalah antara perkara utama yang dibincangkan di sini sekarang di Mesyuarat Peralihan Tenaga, bukan sahaja dengan wakil-wakil kerajaan tetapi juga dengan pemain-pemain industri dan juga sektor-sektor swasta yang kini ingin mencari cara untuk menggembling tenaga untuk merealisasikan matlamat ini secepat mungkin demi kebaikan semua. Untuk segmen kedua ni, saya mahu berbincang bersama dengan Kelvin Wu. Kelvin Wu adalah pengarah My Center for IR. Dengan saya sekali lagi mengalihkan perbualan ini ke dalam bahasa Inggeris. Kelvin, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So the Energy Transition Meeting, the ETM, is co-hosted by My Center for IR, hosted by the My Digital Corporation and also by WEF, the World Economic Forum. So can you share how both entities are working together to bridge digital innovation with this clean energy agenda, not just for Malaysia, but for ASEAN as a whole?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think just to go back a little bit about the origins of the Malaysia Centre for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, we were launched back in 2023 with the mandate to become a multi-stakeholder platform to drive partnership in two key areas: digital transformation and energy transition. And the reason why we have these two focus areas is because it's reflective of our national medium to longer term goals. And one thing that we realize in our work that we have been doing is that we also find a lot of opportunities in the intersection of digital transformation and energy transition as well. And working together with our partner at the World Economic Forum, we have access to a wealth of insights and also expertise that will help us to inform in our Malaysia's policy formulation and development, and also to drive different multi-stakeholder partnership initiatives as well, to drive initiatives in using digital transformation for energy transition, and also thinking about energy transition as we build our digital ecosystem as well. So some of the example of the initiative that we have, and one of the key framework that we have, is the development of a transitioning industrial cluster. It is a multi-stakeholder cluster that is represented by federal government, state government, multinationals, civil societies, and also universities, to bring companies who are co-located in a location to agree on three goals: to agree on GDP contribution, the number of job protection and job creation, and finally looking into the number of the carbon emission reduction goal as well. And that requires significant coordination and alignment of interests between different stakeholders represented in the different as I mentioned earlier on. And that's where we want to bring the stakeholders together and creating a platform to coordinate the different interests of these stakeholders to collectively agree on three goals. And today's meeting is exactly that, where we bring in representatives from the different sectors and also the key influencers of the market to align on the goals, to think about energy transition for our GDP growth, and also for job protection and job creation, and also the carbon emission reduction as well, considering different other enablers such as digital technology, and as mentioned by our Deputy Prime Minister earlier on, looking into how digital transformation can actually drive energy efficiency here in Malaysia and also in the region as well.
Right, you kind of led to my next question, but I just want to go into a bit more detail. I think Malaysia's position as a chairman of ASEAN this year gives it a strategic advantage, gives it a unique viewpoint. So how does the Energy Transition Meeting, ETM, help support that to achieve the broader goal for the energy and also digital transformation this year particularly?
Correct. So that's a very good question. I think for Malaysia, being the chair for ASEAN, we have that opportunity to shape the narrative in one, I think, showcasing how we have done at the national level, but also to demonstrate our leadership in the region as well through the development of the different use cases that we have in the integration of different digital technology in our grid management, for example, and also from then on to then lead the conversation regionally as well. And as mentioned by the Deputy Prime Minister earlier on, the ASEAN Power Grid initiative being one of the priority areas, and also the other digital transformation initiatives as well. And this is where key national policies, for example, the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint, the National 4IR Policy, and also the National Energy Transition Roadmap. And that's where we find the different convergence area for example, in the different priority areas as well, where the Malaysia Centre for the Fourth Industrial Revolution would then want to support in the acceleration of those goals. For example, in green job creation, in the integration of 4IR technology in the different sectors within the industries here in Malaysia. And this is where we want to create that platform again to work with the different stakeholders to achieve those goals.
Right. As you know, the devil's in the details and the devil is in the execution.
Absolutely.
I think one thing that we've learned from previous years, not just when you talk about energy, but across all sectors, is that there seems to be criticism of overlapping functions by organizations and also different agencies. So how does your organization complement existing national strategies, for example, the NETR, National Energy Transformation Roadmap, Malaysia's Digital Economy Blueprint? So how do you ensure that everyone plays their part, not just to support or duplicate, but to complement each other to move as one to achieve this goal?
Yeah, very good question. And I think when the center was first started, that was the question that we want to answer. We want to see what's the value that the center will be able to bring into the larger ecosystem. Being based at My Digital Corporation, it gives us a very unique vantage point and opportunity as we coordinate and also work with the different ministries and also government agencies in the implementation of the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint and also the National 4IR policy. So where the center comes in is we bring in the international expertise and also insights. And the local team here would then contextualize those insights and those framework and expertise to our Malaysian context. And this is where we play a supporting role with the different ministries and also different government agencies in the implementation of the different initiatives outlined in the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint, the National 4IR policy, and also the National Energy Transition Roadmap, so that we can ensure that there is no overlapping in functions, but then we will bring in the relevant stakeholders, adding the different values that will complement each other in achieving those goals.
Finally, I'd like to draw back to a question I asked Roberto earlier in the first segment. The notion is always that developing economies put less priority on sustainable goals, on green energy, because they're too busy developing the economy up to a certain point. The belief is that this is always the cause or advocacy of developed Western nations. So what's your message to leaders of ASEAN, to the people of ASEAN, as we strive to achieve this twin goal, i.e. Achieving energy transition, net zero, but also not compromising and sacrificing economic progress?
I think sustainability is integral to development. And my key message to all the ASEAN leaders and also ASEAN members is that sustainability is no longer an ambition, but it is a necessity, and it should be integral in part of business development and also in policy development as well. And this is why when we were first formed, we were asked to focus on these two key areas, digital transformation and also energy transition. As we want to develop, but we want to develop sustainably as well, because because development is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And this is where we will need the fuel to be able to sustain ourselves for the longer run. And this is where I think we should reframe how we should think about development. Yes, there are short-term goals that we want to achieve, but then we also need to think about the medium to longer term goals as well. So that would be my key message, that sustainability is no longer an option, but a necessity.
We have a bit more time. I want to just delve deeper into that, because we talk about, you know, the difference between developing and developed economies. So within ASEAN itself, ASEAN is probably a regional bloc that is most diverse in terms of not just demography, but also the economic progress made by individual countries. You have modern countries, you have developing economies and things like that. So what do you foresee as the main challenges within ASEAN itself? Because we have different priorities and we are at different stages of development for our economy. How will this be a challenge for us to agree on one common ground and one way to move forward when realizing these energy transition goals?
Very good question. I think in that, and recognizing the reality on the ground and the varying level of development among ASEAN member states, I think this is where a central platform like the ASEAN Secretariat will be an excellent platform to bring all of these concerns and have initiatives that will then bridge these gaps among ASEAN member states. And I think Malaysia is very well positioned to do so in the region, where we're able to share some of the best practices that we have with our neighbours, and also to bring in, to draw in learnings from the other ASEAN member states as well, where the other countries would then be able to take Malaysia as a reference point to see how they are able to think about the policy development and also business development within their nation, and then subsequently translating all of that into their local realities and also context as well. So I think a central platform like ASEAN, and also, for example, a platform like today's meeting, will be an excellent platform to drive those conversations forward, to understand what are some of the gaps and also what are some of the challenges on the ground, but but then it also presents opportunities for collaboration, opportunities for the introduction of new framework that will ultimately be able to benefit economically to the respective nation and also to the people on the ground as well.
Roberto also mentioned that one thing that is undeniable is that it requires a lot of investments. Investments, infrastructure development. Of course, the goal is well and good, but at the end of the day, you need funds to do all this. So within ASEAN, are we expecting more, or are we counting more on investments from other parts of the world who are quote-unquote better off? Or if push comes to shove, because they are too busy with their own goals, can we generate investments within ourselves to achieve this goal?
Very good question. I think looking into the investment landscape, you rightly pointed out, financial investment is key in driving those development. And I think within Southeast Asia, there are different pockets of opportunities for development and also investment for infrastructure within the region. And I think not only that, but also working very closely with the different partners that we have in Asia as well in supporting those development. And I think for us, it is really crucial for us to find partners with similar interests and also similar goal in those development. So I think working with I think there are different opportunities within country, locally, but then we are of course very open to different opportunities abroad as well.
Lastly, it's kind of hard to quantify the success of these functions right after it finishes, because it takes time. Conversations and negotiations sometimes resume, sometimes moves to the next stage in these events, and it requires a lot more meetings, a lot more negotiations. But if you can pick one benchmark, one criteria of success for you to say, okay, the ETM this year in Malaysia, in KL, has been a success, what would that be? How would you define success this year?
I think it would be the number of partnerships formed from as a result of ETM, and something that we can directly attribute to this particular event. I think that would be one of the key success that we would consider. And like what you have rightly mentioned, it all started with a conversation, and then it requires a lot of follow-up and also follow-through. And this is where my team is very dedicated and committed in seeing through the different follow-ups from the conversation here that's happening today here in ETM. And I think that would be one of the reference point I will have, the partnerships that we form here at the meeting.
Good luck. Thank you so much, Kelvin.
Thank you so much, Lukman.
Kelvin Wu, Head of My Center for IR, dan itu saja untuk agenda AWANI untuk jam ini dari Energy Transition Meeting atau mesyuarat peralihan tenaga di sisi sidang kemuncak ASEAN 2025 di bawah kepengurusian Malaysia. Sudah tentu tenaga dan peralihan hijau hanyalah satu aspek daripada pelbagai tumpuan yang kita akan saksikan dan bawakan kepada anda sepanjang kepengurusian Malaysia tahun ini. Ia tidak bermula atau berakhir dengan sidang kemuncak saja, tapi ia akan berlarutan dan berpanjangan sehingga ke hujung tahun ini. Banyak perkara yang perlu kita lakukan dan capai bersama-sama dengan kesemua 10 negara anggota ASEAN dengan Malaysia merajui sebagai pengurusi. Sudah tentu semuanya kami akan bawakan di saluran 501 sidang kemuncak perkembangan sidang kemuncak ASEAN. Semuanya kami akan kemas kini di astroawani.com, dan jangan lupa untuk ikuti semua platform media sosial kami untuk yang terkini berkenaan dengan sidang kemuncak ASEAN dan semua sidang-sidang berkaitan di Kuala Lumpur. Masa sekarang ini, sekian saja agenda AWANI dari Energy Transition Meeting atau mesyuarat peralihan tenaga. Saya Salom Hares. Kita jumpa lagi. Assalamualaikum dan salam hormat.